Hey, so this is actually response to one of my own videos, which I don't always do, but I feel this is important because the responses to the video was pretty much as I predicted. Um, and I just see this trend continuing. So I just want to say a few words about this. I'm going to paraphrase the response. Basically, this is a response to my video entitled Jeremy Corbyn Important Questions. In that video, I was raising a lot of issues about some of Jeremy Corbyn's positions, specifically his refusal to directly condemn the IRA's record of violence in Northern Ireland during a radio talk uh, whilst he was in Northern Ireland, um, and also just generally about Jeremy Corbyn and the fact he is facing tough questions. Um, So I'm just going to paraphrase some of the responses I got in the video. This is from Carbonic Oyster. From my perspective, there is a lot of desperation from non-Jeremy Corbyn supporters. Blairism has destroyed Labour and Corbyn is the only real antidote. Then he goes on to say, you're a Tory in denial. Um, okay, I'll come back to him. Barney Rubble says, poor attempts at smear. He supported the peace process, which, let's face it, has been a hell of a lot more progressive than the violence process. Okay, firstly, I've kept these guys' comments on my channel because they're not they're not particularly hateful comments. At least Barney Rubbles isn't. It's more, um, I think it's naive. As for the other guy, calling me a Tory in denial, well, my response to him was that if this was 1960s China, he would make a perfect red guard. There is a trend with Jeremy Corbyn supporters. I'm talking about hardline supporters here. I'm not talking about people who think, he's a good guy and he says some decent things. And I'm not talking about all supporters, but there is a hardcore contingent of Jeremy Corbyn supporters who seem to think that every question directed towards Jeremy Corbyn is slander. Every question is somehow some big right wing plot to destabilize him, to destabilize his campaign. Now, there is a problem with this sort of thinking, and that is this is a man who wants to be Prime Minister. Okay? Get that into your heads. I'm sorry, but I'm a little bit pissed off right now because I resent being branded a Tory. I actually hate Toryism. I hate many aspects of Toryism. Nor am I a Blairite. Although admittedly I am more of a centrist than these guys, but that doesn't automatically make me a Blairite. There's a lot of things Tony Blair done and a lot of aspects of Blairism I don't agree with. Um, but really what this comes down to is a deep intolerance among a lot of hardcore Jeremy Corbyn supporters, and I am unsettled by this. I said in the last video it's not quite a personality cult, but maybe it's going to descend into that. If we keep getting into a situation where every single time Jeremy Corbyn is asked questions that may be tough, then his supporters get into this frenzy. Oh, it's a right wing establishment out to get him, or it's a smear campaign. How about this? How about the fact this is a man who wants to be Prime Minister of this country and he's justifiably being asked tough questions about his philosophy? That seems entirely reasonable to me. And just to be clear, we're not talking here about, tabloid rags talking about, him being a commie or something. We're talking about professional journalists asking reasonable questions. For example, the thing about Northern Ireland, that seemed reasonable to me, asking specifically if he would condemn the IRA's track record of violence. I don't see how that would be controversial. People say it's in the past. Yes, it's in the past, but it's entirely reasonable to see what sort of thinking that someone who aspires to be Prime Minister of this country has. Now, the insinuation, whether it is the case or not, is that Mr. Corbyn is therefore sympathetic to the IRA. He specifically condemned the British, and he just avoided the question about the IRA. He gave a very vague, in my view, cowardly answer, um, just like, oh, I condemn violence generally, but he refused to directly condemn them. I think that's despicable, quite frankly, and I think he should be ashamed of himself. Um, of course, people are going to call me a Tory, and they're going to say it's a smear campaign. But look, this man wants to be leader of a major political party. He wants to be prime minister. presumably that's his goal if he's, running to be head of the country's second largest party. So, to Jeremy Corbyn supporters, you need to get off this sort of attitude that he is above scrutiny and he is above any questions whatsoever. It's bullshit. No candidate should be above scrutiny. No candidate of any party. I'm aware that there has been smear campaigns against left-leaning candidates in the past. I'm not denying that, and I certainly believe that Ed Miliband went through it. But Ed Miliband didn't have some of the extreme positions that Jeremy Corbyn does. For example, implicit sympathies with the IRA. If he doesn't sympathise with the IRA, why doesn't he just say so? Jeremy Corbyn is causing a lot of this himself by not giving direct answers to direct questions. It's his own fault. He's an intelligent man, but I think, you know, he's bringing about a lot of his own problems by not giving direct answers to direct questions. Very often, how Jeremy Corbyn responds is to have a tantrum. Um, I've seen this a few times. Um, I think he's very intolerant to other opinions. I remember I think it was a question time, or anyway, it was a studio audience event. A man brought up the issue of immigration. Corbyn's response was to shout the man down. That is not befitting a leader. Okay, whatever you think about that subject, that is not how you deal with a member of the public who's concerned about an issue. And just to be clear, the man wasn't, ranting and raving about immigrants. He was making a valid question about immigration numbers. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn can't handle something like that, I'm telling you now, this man is never going to be Prime Minister. People say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. But if you want to enact those socialist policies, actually, I read an interesting article yesterday by a trade unionist who's no Blairite, who supports pretty much all of Jeremy Corbyn's ideals, but he acknowledged that if you want to change policy, if you want to change direction, you need someone who has a chance of becoming Prime Minister. This man is unelectable as Prime Minister, and I don't think he deserves to be Prime Minister because of his anti-British positions. That's crazy. Why should someone who has a track record of anti-British positions be allowed into this country's highest political office? What other country in the world would have that sort of situation? I don't think Jeremy Corbyn deserves it. Like I said, it's typical of Jeremy Corbyn supporters, and this is pissing me off, but I made it clear in the last video, I actually support a lot of his social policies. Okay, Corbyn supporters, get that into your thick heads. I support a lot of his social policies. Unlike you, I am not sycophantic. I am not blindly adulating him. So, to those guys, especially to Carbonic Oyster, grow up, because you just dismiss someone as a Tory because they don't exactly agree with you. Uh, well, then in that case, 90% of Britain is a Tory, because a lot of left wingers even don't entirely trust Jeremy Corbyn. Granted, he's doing very well. Granted, he has a strong grassroots campaign, but that does not make him right. He's an intelligent man. He's got compassion on a lot of social issues, but I believe it is entirely legitimate to scrutinise some of his positions. I believe it is entirely legitimate to ask questions about his connections to the anti-British, anti-Western, pro-Islamist Stop the War coalition. That's not slander. It's scrutinising someone who wants to be in a position of power.